And good afternoon. It is 1 minute after the hour of 1 p.m. Yes, and it is time for Play It Forward. Yes, and that is with Allison and the crew. And Allison, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Wizzy. I'm Allison, and you are listening to Play It Forward on WUSB Stony Brook 90.1 and 107.3 FM. Happy Friday, everyone.
Happy Friday.
Yeah, it's the weekend. Alongside of me is my co-host, Kurt, and we have Sanjana and Lily back in the studio. Welcome back, Seawolves. Welcome back to the semester. And momentarily, we will introduce a very special guest. We have Mike Favor in the house. He's co-founder of No More Pain Rescue, also known as Pit Bulls and Addicts. Mike's incredible journey from battling a 13-year addiction to finding sobriety in 2016 has led him to rescue pit bulls and connect recovering addicts with these misunderstood dogs, creating a powerful program of healing and second chances. So we'll be speaking with Mike in a minute, but here's Kurt for a closer look at what Play It Forward is all about.
Hello, everybody. What's going on? Thanks for tuning in. The Play It Forward Project is a nonprofit that raises awareness, educates, and advocates in the fight against the opioid crisis, focusing on prevention and recovery through peer-to-peer advocacy. On our show, we bring in guests from the field of addiction, people in recovery, and more. We discuss illicit drugs, fentanyl, and substance use disorder. And towards 2 p.m., we shout out some resources for you, so please tune in then as well. We broadcast from Stony Brook University's radio station live every other Friday from 1 to 2 p.m., and we are now live streaming our previous episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts under Play It Forward, and on our YouTube channel at the Play It Forward Project, where you can listen to our previous shows on the go. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at sbu.playitforward. We would love to hear from you. We'd love to hear what you think of the show, what you think of the guests, what you think of us. Please send us some questions. And also, we are returning as a club on campus. So Sanjana is going to welcome everybody back and give you some details about that.
All right, great. Hi, everyone. I just want to ask our student listeners to check out Play It Forward Club, where we focus on peer-to-peer awareness. We have campaigns for that, educational workshops, guest speaker events, and we ultimately want to empower students to foster a more informed campus community. Without further ado, here is Allison to introduce our guest, Mike Favor.
How will they find you, Sanjana? How will they find the club?
Good idea. Idea. I mean, similar stuff. Go check out our Instagram at sbu.playitforward. We're also on SB Engage, so if you go on that website and you search up Play It Forward, you're going to follow us on there, and we can see you and add you to our roster.
And you can come on the radio, and you can meet us and our cool guests like Mike.
Be part of the production, post-production, be part of the show, and pre-production. We need you.
And get involved with a cause that is a major concern for your age group, you know? Yeah. So please
Thanks,
come check us
Sanjana.
out. Yeah.
And Lily and Kurt.
And Allison.
So we have a special guest. Mike Favor is with us today, a passionate advocate for both addiction recovery and animal rescue, whose journey has transformed countless lives, both human and canine, through his work with No More Pain Rescue and Pit Bulls and Addicts. Welcome to the studio and the show, Mike.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. You came all the way from Staten Island. You drove pretty far for us.
That's what I do to spread love.
Tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
So I originally started No More Pain Rescue in 2017, but we've actually grown. We've grown apart. That was between me and my ex, and we both went our ways. So I am the owner and founder of Broken Souls Rescue and Recovery now. I still work very close with No More Pain, but I am the founder of Broken Souls Rescue and Recovery. When I did start my nonprofit organization, I did try to make it Pitbulls and Addicts, but they denied my name.
Really?
So, yeah, you talk about being judged and labeled. Wow. So I had no other choice, and I always said that, you know, I'm a broken soul. Well, I was a broken soul, and that's how I started the new rescue organization, Broken Souls Rescue and Recovery.
Wow.
You know, for the people that are soft in this world, that don't understand that Pitbulls and Addicts are two misunderstood breeds.
Mm-hmm.
You have an amazing story to tell, and of course about your journey to sobriety. Congratulations on your recovery. I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
And the work that you do is very important.
Yeah.
So I discovered Mike in the New York Times. He was on the front page of the Sunday edition, which is is a pretty big
That was an
deal.
honor, man. I was really surprised on how, they really...
It was a great
They studied
article.
me.
Yeah.
The man John Legend, he spent countless hours behind the scenes with me. Everybody who I mentioned, he called and he interviewed them. And, the most rewarding part about that is that being an addict in recovery that's very open about my struggles from how I got to where I was and to making my dreams become a reality.
Yeah.
And, along the way, a lot of people have come into my life that are no longer in my life because sometimes you just have to eliminate certain people for obvious reasons that, everybody's there to cheer you on when you're doing well, but when you're not doing well, they're nowhere to be found.
Right,
and,
right.
People change up their ways because of opinions. This is no longer an opinion. This is my life. This is the facts of life. This is the reality of a negative addiction becoming a positive addiction. This is the facts of a man who at one point wanted to take my life when I felt like I was worthless. Even though I was sober, I still felt like I was worthless. My life is not about people's opinions. My life is about truly inspiring people to go out and become the best version of themselves, because at the end of the day, the only thing that we're promised is a deathbed.
Yeah.
And before you get there, you may as well change your ways around and become who you want to become.
Leave your mark.
Yeah, I mean...
So how'd you get to this point? Like, what... Walk us through. When did
so
it
basically,
start?
I was raised by amazing parents. My father was ironically a narcotics detective. My mother was a stay-at-home mom. I'm one of five.
Okay.
Born and raised in Staten Island, New York. So I wasn't raised to be this man. I wasn't shown that dark life by my parents, and I feel like that was the life that I had to live. Like, there's a lot of addicts out there that, I know for a fact that just their parents are drug addicts or alcoholics. And they grow up in that environment. And even though my parents I grew up in an Irish American household. So, my father was a cop and my mom was a stay-at-home, and, they partied all the time. So alcohol was always around me. And, but I was still always told that if you become a drug addict, you're going to lose everything.
Right.
Like, I was behind the scenes with my father doing investigations, and back in the day they used to do phone taps,
right,
and I used to listen to phone taps. My father would come home with different stories about addicts and the drug dealers, and just everything about that life.
Did you ever idolize it? Like him coming home and telling you those stories?
Yeah, I mean, my father used to come home with like some of these crazy surveillance vans, just being like seeing like the group of men that my father used to work with. Like, the cops nowadays are a little bit different than the cops back in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. My father and his team actually wanted to make a difference. Yeah, I wanted to be a cop. Yeah, I did. Wow. I wanted to be my father. And then, I ran down the wrong road, and I wound up, getting beat up by cops and getting locked up for, just for being a nuisance. I was a problem. And, when the cops started to beat me up or lock me up is when I started to hate them. But then I realized that, there's not all bad cops. There's not all good cops. It's the same thing as everybody. There's not all good. There's not all bad. Right. It's what you do to get the reaction that you get. So I wanted to be a cop. And then...
When did you start using?
I started drinking alcohol at 11 years old.
Okay.
And the reason being was because I was mentally abused by a dentist at 11 years old, and I felt like I was worthless. I was going to amount to anything. When I started to drink, it started to make me feel like I was okay.
Yeah.
So alcohol played just a role in my early days of learning how to cope with pain, because that's what it was. It was very painful, being mentally abused. And a lot of people, like, I didn't really realize how I got where I was until I got sober and I actually studied my life. When I studied my life and I kept on getting back, I kept on finding myself thinking about that time that I was in like a dim room like we're in now. Like, this is how the rooms used to be. They're not LED lights, and nobody was around, and I had this fat, miserable sorry. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I just listen. It's just this guy, like this guy that mentally abused me. And he's sitting there, and I just remember he had a stain on his shirt. His shirt was out. He was just a fat mess, and he screamed in my face and told me that I'll have no teeth in my mouth by the age of 30.
Oh my God.
And I was like, nah, that can't be it. That can't be it. But that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Being mentally abused and feeling worthless at such an early age.
But you didn't know it then. I mean,
I didn't know it then. But
yeah.
So then when I was observing my life and trying to put my life together onto like, how did I become this person? I kept on finding myself in that dentist chair.
Yeah.
And then I started to think about it. And it took me for one hell of a road.
Right. So you started drinking at 11, and then
I started drinking at 11 years old, and
there.
I just realized, like, with all that pain that I was sitting with inside of me, when I would drink alcohol, it would make me feel like I'm okay.
Yep.
And then, you know, like, the drunker that you get, the funnier you become, the more social you become, and it became my life. So, but I always said that I wouldn't do any other drugs. Like, you know, I was always okay with just drinking alcohol until I blacked out.
Well, that was acceptable.
Yeah, it was acceptable.
That was your model
Correct.
behavior. Okay.
And, you know, 21 years old, I was down the Jersey Shore. I was with the wrong people, and they said, hey, you know, do you do coke? And I was like, yeah, I do it. And I did one bump, and that was it.
And that was it. So you went from 11 till 21 just
Correct.
drinking, and then
Yeah,
Not
and the
even
crazy
weed?
part
No
was,
weed?
I mean, everybody smoked weed, but
Okay.
I don't, you know,
But you
I
didn't
look
try
at,
harder drugs
no.
prior to
Nope.
21. Okay.
wow.
So, and my father used to always come home with, like I said, surveillance and
Yeah.
pictures and stuff. So I seen the behind the scenes of really what addicts, you know, go through, the lifestyles that they live. I seen the houses. I seen the lives of even the drug dealers, like, you know, like, and it just,
So you knew how to cover it up, too.
yeah.
Well, Mike,
I
did you think that was that a deterrent, seeing all that? Or, like, I mean, maybe to some extent, you're like, all right, drinking's manageable. That's not really that crazy. I see my dad, and
Yeah.
he's telling me about all these crazy
Yeah.
stories of these crackheads and crack houses and stuff like that. Was that like a deterrent for you?
Yeah,
or?
I mean, again, it just made me not want to be that person.
Right.
But you didn't think you were going to be that
I didn't
person
think I was going
when
to be
you
that
were
person, and the
trying.
more that the deeper that my pain, and obviously I ran from the dentist, so all my oral pain was getting worse, and the
Right,
problems were getting worse, and the only solution to that problem was to just
Numb
drink
it.
and just numb it,
drown
just
it.
to get away from the way that I felt, because, you know, after the first couple of drinks, you start to feel like a different
Yeah.
person, and I say it to this day. Like, if you look at society and look what we deal with, right? You're having a good day, you celebrate with a drink. You're having a bad day, you go home and have a drink. You know, everywhere you turn, everybody's drinking. Every store you go into,
Yeah.
they advertise.
Gas
Well, it was
stations
essential
everywhere.
during COVID.
Correct.
Yeah.
You know, it's really, really, truly accepted.
Right.
And that's, to me, it's like, that's one of the worst drugs
Yep.
possible, because it changes everything. And I say it all the time. I'm like, look at a party when a party starts. When a party first starts, everybody's quiet. They're on the outside of the room, and everybody's just drinking.
Yeah.
And within a couple of hours, everybody loves you.
Yep.
You know, by the end of the party, they want you to be the godfather of their child.
Yep.
They love you.
And then they
wanna
don't
be business
remember it.
partners,
Yeah,
and then they
yeah.
don't remember it. So alcohol truly changes your mindset.
Absolutely.
And then when you throw, to me, it was like you throw cocaine in there. It's like, you know,
Forget
then
it.
here comes, I'm like
Well, that's a dopamine
Yeah.
like dump right there.
it's
right?
it's a high, it's a low and a high, and you
Right.
put them together, and it's like you just become something that you're not.
Yeah.
Were you living at home when you started using
Yes.
coke? And was your father still?
Yeah,
in
my
the-
father
in the
was still
DEA?
alive. My father, no, he was retired.
He was retired at that
Yeah.
point. Okay.
But when I started using cocaine, I lived in a side apartment of my parents. I would come in through a side door. You know, my father's office was in the kitchen. So after my long nights of partying and he came down to work, I would pretend like I was sleeping.
Right.
You know, and then I would just sit there and clap my heels and
Yeah.
hope that he would leave. And then when he left, I would get back up. Sometimes I would go back to partying. Sometimes I would just take a shower and go to sleep. Like, and I'm just super thankful that I never used anything besides cocaine and alcohol. Like, I didn't find myself using sleeping medicine. I
Right.
didn't find myself like taking other drugs.
Heroin.
No, I
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
like I said, really seeing it really kept me from becoming, even allowing it. Like,
Well, I remember in the 80s and 90s, cocaine was like way more, I don't know how to say it, but like more acceptable
it was a party drug.
than heroin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it was like you wouldn't want to tell people you did heroin, but you
Correct.
had no problem saying, yeah, I'll do a
I'll
few
do a bump.
lines.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Was
you know,
like a natural thing? Was that
Cocaine
why?
was huge in the 80s.
Okay.
It was everywhere.
just they say that cocaine is the rich man's drug, and you know that, you know, that's acceptable. Like, you know, everybody that they're successful, they go out, they party. It's not looked down upon. Heroin was a cheaper drug, and you know,
Well, there's also, I mean, there's just waves of different, like the 80s had the Coke,
and then
it was like, like I feel like we go through different phases.
Well,
of
right.
Like
Currently,
huge
look
influx
what we're
of
dealing
drugs.
with.
Wait.
Currently,
Right
now it's fentanyl, and there's a new one out that's
Xylazine.
yeah. That's an animal tranquilizer.
Yeah.
So fentanyl is not good enough for them anymore. Yeah, a couple years ago when fentanyl really hit the States, remember there was fentanyl and then there was another car fentanyl.
Yeah, I know.
And people didn't realize what it was. Like car fentanyl, a study was shown that like a grain of salt with that car fentanyl would put down an elephant. And people were sniffing it and smoking it.
Wild.
You hear crazy stories of like, somebody, whether an EMS worker or a cop that touches it, that overdoses.
Oh,
well, there was the daycare in the Bronx that had that. It was underneath the floorboards and
That's
stuff.
crazy.
But so I just want to rewind a second. So when you did it at 21, and was it like as soon as you did it, you're like, this is it, this is me, I'm gonna keep doing this, and you were off and running, or like was it a gradual?
So when I first started to sniff at 21, I used to only sniff on the weekends. I was a weekend warrior.
Yeah.
When I first started sniffing, I was able to sniff 150 bag throughout the whole weekend. And between Friday night, Saturday, all day, all night, and then Sunday, if I was going out, I'd do a bump here and there. But I thought I had it under control.
Yeah.
And then
And
what
you
happened
did in
was,
the beginning.
and I
It's
did.
always it's always under control in the beginning.
And
that's what you think. I've got this.
And but the truth is, like, when I remember taking that first line, and it's like, wow.
Yeah.
So you're chasing that. You're chasing that same feeling. And the truth about any type of drug is that the first hit that you take in the morning or the evening, whenever you take it, whatever time or whenever, your first initial hit, you get the highest that you'll be until you let it come out of your body, right? So I remember taking that first bump and being like, wow, I felt something that I never felt before. I felt unstoppable. I felt okay. So then I didn't realize, like, when you're coming down and you do a bump, you think that you're high, but you're not. You're just going back to,
Just maintaining
what the high that you got.
You never get that same high ever again.
And so I was a weekend warrior. And then that was probably lasted for like 2 or 3 years. And then as I started to learn how to hide it and learn how to, pick and choose who I was around, pick and choose who knew, it became like one night a week. I would go out and do a couple bumps. And then as I started to work more with men who did it, it became more of a daily thing.
What'd you do for work back then?
And when I was 21 years old, I was working in a non-union construction company.
Okay. All right.
So, but that was when I was underneath like the wing of I was working with my brother-in-law. So like I was underneath his supervision. So the weekends I wasn't around. The week I was.
But even that whole environment, that's you work hard, you play hard kind of thing.
Correct.
And all those guys are. Not
But in the
all of them,
beginning,
but-
like we were really, really, really close. Like he was the older brother to me that I really needed.
Yeah.
I think that he would have felt let down if he would have known that I was partying the way that I was.
Right.
Now, everybody used to party. I mean, I partied with him.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to lie. But, at the end of the day, he wouldn't have promoted it to me. He wouldn't, he wasn't okay with me being that guy.
Right.
He also didn't know that I was battling something my entire life because I never spoke about it. I was
the
raised.
mental anguish that you had suffered.
Just the pain that I sat in because of what that man had said to me at 11 years old. So
Right.
from 11 to 21, the alcohol was my way out, and it made me feel like okay.
Yeah.
But I also never spoke about it. Being
Right.
raised by narcotics detectives, and I was also raised by gangsters of Little Italy. So I was raised by men, and we were told not to talk about things.
Yeah.
Like, you just get through it.
Yep.
Just make it happen. Like,
Buckle down and keep trudging.
Buckle down and keep on going.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's really what I lived with. Like I lived by that rule. Like you don't talk about it. You get through it. And nowadays I could tell you that I definitely changed that aspect of my life. Now if something's going on, I have to speak.
You
about
have to.
it.
Yeah.
I realize that an idle mind is a devil's playground.
For sure.
And,
my mother used to always tell
yeah.
me that. Yeah.
But like
I know.
that really never made any sense to me. And then I realized an idle mind is the devil's playground. The devil's going to play with you. He plays with me to today. But the problem is that he'll never win again.
Right.
You know, he took my life.
Yeah.
You know,
once. You're not
It's
going
the
to win
angel
again.
and the devil on each side,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
So you go from 21 till how long? Like what did the
21
end
to
look
33.
like? 33. Okay.
Wow.
33, 34. Yeah, so I hit it. A lot of people knew that I partied, you know, obviously. But also a lot of people didn't know how bad it was.
Right.
Were you
At
buying?
times-
You were buying more and more and
Yeah,
more.
well, the one thing that I'm super thankful is like, you know, like I was never a grimy person. My father raised me with morals and respect, even for myself. Even when I hated myself and I hated everything about
Which
myself.
is kind of crazy because
Yeah.
you know most people that are using and stuff, like all those morals go right out the
Yeah.
window. I mean,
Yeah.
like I know when I was using, like, you know, I did a lot.
Well,
of
I had a
grimy
lot of
stuff,
I had
you
a
know?
lot of like self-hate that was inside of me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really open.
Right.
But when I talk about morals and like the respect that I have for myself is that I didn't find myself buying drugs from like dirtbags. Like
Okay.
so like all my drug dealers were like family
Good people.
men. And, yeah, they were great people. But like I think that
you
most
justified it
of,
more that way.
But most of the coke that I was doing was good quality coke.
Okay.
And I'm just super thankful for that. I
Yeah.
mean, I know it sounds crazy.
Yeah. Right.
But like my drug dealers weren't mixing it with stuff that
Yeah.
you know
Yeah,
shouldn't
yeah.
be in it. You know, like I mean, no dose and other stuff that they would put in it. But you know, like I wasn't getting bottom grade coke. So you know, after all of those years, I still have a septum,
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
Like you see, some people can't even go 3 years sniffing
Yep.
stuff, and their noses you
Yep.
know, decay. But yeah, you know, I'm just super thankful that my father raised me a certain way, you know, and I was also very observant around my surroundings, like, you know, growing up in New York, you've seen it, you know,
Yeah.
there was the people that did different drugs that just lived different lifestyles,
Yeah.
and even though I had all this self-hatred inside of me, and at times I didn't even feel like I was worth anything, but I was still okay because I was high,
Right.
you know, and I just stayed away from all the nonsense, I
Yeah,
should say.
yeah.
You know, when it comes to, you know, being a cokehead, it's like, you know, I could very easily go get cheap coke and hang out in,
Yeah.
you know, the dark places with the dark people. And I don't know if I would have made it out.
What was the breaking point? What was the final straw? Like, what brought you to your knees?
You know, it got to the point where I was super embarrassed of who I was. I was hiding from my father for many years. I was hiding from my family, my loved ones. I just kept on running and running and running, and it got to the point where I was working a job down the block from my father's house, and every morning he would call me up to ask me if I wanted to go for breakfast. And sometimes it was 9:30, sometimes it was 10 o'clock. But by that time, I was already, you know,
you
so
don't want
high.
to eat when you're doing coke.
Yeah, I was so high I couldn't even sit down and speak with my father,
Right.
let alone look at him, you know,
Right.
let alone eat. So it got to the point where I was just running and running and running, and I just felt, you know, like,
Did he ever suspect?
I mean, yeah, I mean, he suspected that when he got phone calls from the cops. And,
Okay, all right.
you know, but you know, he definitely knew that I partied. He just, you know,
Again,
what is
not
he
the
gonna
extent
do?
of it.
You know,
Yeah.
He did. Nobody knew how bad it was. Like,
Yeah.
I lived with my ex for many years. She had no clue how bad
No,
it was.
you were good at hiding it.
I was very good at hiding it. I was also very good at hiding my pain. You know, childhood
Yeah.
pain that brought me to my knees, and finally cocaine and alcohol let me get up and walk, and then it's like you're just walking in that dark road. But the breaking point was I knew that if I didn't change my ways that I wasn't going to make it much longer. And you know, I got to the point where I would get out of the shower and I would put a hoodie on. I didn't even want to look at myself in the mirror. At the time, my oral pain was, you know, it was unbearable. And I kept on telling myself, like, I'm going to become a sanitation worker, and then I'll go get my teeth fixed.
Yeah.
And I took the sanitation test.
Did you?
I did. I did very well on it. I got
Okay.
accepted into the program, and then I went for a drug test.
Yeah. I'll get you every
Oh,
time.
wow. Did you ever overdose?
No.
Wow.
Nope. I never overdosed. I used to drink to sniff and sniff to drink, and that's the only
Yeah.
two things that I did.
Okay.
I don't know how,
Yeah.
because I could tell
You're
you
lucky.
that I'm very lucky. But then again, it goes into the coke that I was sniffing.
Yeah,
You know, and I'm
yeah.
not trying to justify this good coke and bad coke. It's like,
Yeah, but
you know,
too much of any
too
kind.
much of anything
Yeah.
is not good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I did it the right way, I guess,
Yeah.
because I survived. Like, there was a point in my life where I was doing like 30 bags a day.
You probably didn't even like it anymore.
I didn't. I hated it. I couldn't breathe, and just I was like walking on eggshells everywhere I went. I wasn't myself. I felt, and
You got a paranoia too.
Yeah, paranoid. That's definitely plays a role in it, but more of
It's anxiety over how you're living.
You're just always worried about everything except fixing
Right.
the real problem.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that this is not the answer for this problem.
Yeah.
But when you don't know no better, you think it's the only answer. So one of the things that really that started to wake me up was when I got accepted into sanitation. I didn't do cocaine for like, I think it was 10 days or so. And I drank a lot of water and I still popped dirty because I have no body fat on me. And I thought I was super clear, like, you know, when I went and I took my test, the guy who looked at the vial was like, "Hey, this is like water," and I'm like, "Yeah, I drink a lot of water. I'm super healthy." And I was like, "Yeah," and he's like, "You may have to come back and pee again," and I was like, "No problem," right? And then it was like maybe 3 months down the road, my father kept on asking me like, "Hey, how'd everything go?" I'm like, "I'm just waiting for the phone call, waiting for the phone call." And one night I was driving home and my drive shaft on my truck went, right? So my truck is now done. I take a cab to my mom's house. My mom gives me her car to get home. I get home. I go to sleep. I wake up the next morning. I'm like, what is going on with my life? I get a phone call from a 212 number, and it's the doctor from the New York City sanitation. He's like, "How you doing? This is Dr. So-and-so. Is this Michael Favor?" "Yeah." And he says, "Is there any reason why there's traces of cocaine in your urine?" And I'm like,
"No, doctor.
You got to be kidding me."
Yeah.
So he's
How'd
like,
that
"Listen."
get there?
Yeah. I'm like, "I don't know. I ate a poppy bagel."
Right.
But
Oh,
like,
a
no,
poppy
I was
bagel.
just
No,
like,
that-
I was like, no, there's no reason. So then he was like, you know, if you do want, you could send it for personal testing at a Quest Diagnostics, and you know, you just have to cover it. I said, "There's no reason for that," and I hung up the phone. I went into my drawer, I took out an 8-ball, and I remember sitting at my table, literally sniffing and looking outside and saying to myself, like, what is going on with my life? So I had that on my conscience for quite some time, and I never told my father. I never told anybody. I was like, I guess they just didn't want me. They didn't call me. They didn't want me. They didn't call me.
Too many applicants.
Yeah. You know, and just like all of this stuff just was really taking its toll on me. And, you know, running, like I said, you know, one of the breaking points was when my father was calling me. I mean, he would call me every single day for going for breakfast, and I kept on saying no because I just couldn't even sit next to him.
That really
He
got
would
to
pick
you.
it up. It did, because at those are the times, like, I would drive down a block and I would look down the street that my house was at the corner, and my father would be on the stoop waiting to go for breakfast. Meanwhile, I'm telling him that I'm working.
Right.
I'm so busy, but meanwhile, I'm on my way to go pick up more cocaine for the day. And then it just like, it got to the point where I was super embarrassed. I felt like I was amounting to nothing. I didn't want to be this person no more. The sanitation got shattered. I had, that was no longer an option. But I was raised to work, and I knew that I could definitely change it around and just change a negative addiction into a positive addiction. And I had no clue what I was going to do, but finally got to the point where I knew I had to make a change. And when I made a change, I put forth all the effort that I would put all day, every day, because being a drug addict, you have to put effort into it.
It's a full-time job, yeah.
I mean,
24/7.
A lot of people, like, nowadays, like, listen, I could tell you, like, I am super proud of who I am. I'm super happy. I don't live my life trying to make nobody. I'm not a people pleaser. I'm here to please myself. I'm here to make up on all of the lost time that I had. I'm here to truly, like, rebuild that little broken boy, like I say, like a broken boy into a changed man. And, you know, like, there's a lot of kids out there that think that things aren't possible. With me, it's that I knew it was possible. You know,
But I have to find a way to get there.
Well, you know, it's in my bloodline. You know, my grandfather is a Bronze Star general. My father was a veteran and a DEA agent. I was raised by men.
Yeah.
And the only way that could make the change is if I made it.
Right.
You know, so
what did you do?
I looked myself in the mirror. So I'm not super religious. I have a serious problem with the Catholic Church. we were raised. I used to love church. It was a place where I felt at home. Ironically, on Sundays when we went with my family, even with the battling. And again, you know, I have to stress that nobody knew. When I came forth and I told my father about what was going on in my life, that man cried.
Really?
Like, why wouldn't you come? This is such an easy fix. But it got to the point where you're so embarrassed.
Yeah,
and
totally.
And you just want to let it go.
I bet you
But
never
it's-
forgot that moment.
Never. There's so many moments that my father, like, you know, cried to me, and again, he reminded me. Yeah, that's my father
Is
right
that your
there.
dad?
Yeah,
So I'm looking at a tattoo on his arm,
yeah.
and he's got very big arms.
It says, "Protect me, Father."
That's beautiful.
That's awesome.
That's really nice.
But I was raised to be a man, and, you know, like I said, you know, things were different back in the days. I look myself in the mirror. I'm not super religious, so ironically, March 26, 2016 is Easter Sunday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I was raised in a Catholic family. You know, we went to church every Sunday as a family. All the holidays were better masses because all the families would go.
Yeah.
But it's a place that I felt at home. And then these priests started touching boys. And to me, that's something that my father was super, super against, you know, and it made me hate church.
Right.
It made me hate religion.
Right.
You know, like, how could these men be men of God
Right.
touching boys? Now, if you think about it, I may have not been touched by a man, because if a man would have touched me, I would have said something. Right? But I was still abused by a man.
Yeah.
So when you talk about pedophiles, I have a shirt that says,
Yeah, I know.
euthanize pedophiles, not Pitbulls.
I was trying to see what it said. Yeah.
So, like, that's really, like, pedophiles destroy children.
Yeah.
Boys and girls.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's not just men, it's women too. You know, a pedophile is a pedophile. So my whole life, I had no higher power. I became like a living monster where it felt good to hurt people. You know,
What do you mean by that?
when you hate yourself so much and you can no longer cause any more self-harm, you project that hate onto other people, and it
I know
makes
what
you
you mean
feel
now.
powerful, makes you feel better. So for my whole life, I was a bully. I used to love violence. I used to love hurting people. But I never was that man. And, you know, I say it
It was
today.
a front.
It was a front. I never want to be... I want to be respected for the man that I am. I
Right.
never want to be feared for somebody who I'm not. And I was never that man. Like I said, my father raised me as to be a good person. And I used to put on the front and try to be a good person, but deep down inside, I wasn't.
You were hurting.
I was hurting. So, you know, like, I didn't bully people in front of my parents. Like, there was things that weren't accepted. Back in the day, if you acted a certain which way, you get cracked up.
Right.
You know, come home, get the belt. Here comes daddy. You know, things were different. You know, and I'm just super thankful for that because, like,
comes daddy.
even though I was out of my mind, you know, and I wasn't who I was raised to be, my father still kept me in line.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't know how bad he didn't know what was going on with me. There was a point in my life where, you know, running from the dentist, I would come up with every excuse on why I couldn't do it.
Right.
I found safe places, and one of my safe places that I found was hockey.
Okay.
Right.
All right,
So,
I remember reading
yeah.
about
So I used to play hockey like 6-7 days a week.
Wow.
So
Ice hockey?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if it wasn't ice hockey, it was roller hockey.
Right.
I used to find myself like making excuses on why I couldn't go to the dentist, and then a year passed, 2 years passed. Like my parents aren't thinking like, oh, got to get to the dentist, like things were a little different.
Yeah.
I was down in Long Beach Island with my father, and he had thrown a football to me, or I forget, a frisbee or something, and I just laughed so hard with him, and he seen that one of my front teeth were rotten, and he pulled me over and he was like, smile, and I was like, no, and he's like, Michael, smile, and I was like, no, Dad, and he's like, come here, and he opened up, he's like, why wouldn't you tell me that this is, you know,
Yeah.
that your tooth is rotten, like we have insurance, and I was like, oh, you know, I was just embarrassed, Dad, and he's like, there's nothing to be embarrassed about, we have insurance, we
Right.
can get this fixed. So I never said anything, but I made him come with me to get it fixed.
Okay.
So I said, I want you to come with me, Dad. And Never mentioned anything, and that was the only time I went.
Wow.
So like after all of that, I had a lot of surface cavities that had to be. At the time, it was only surface cavities that had to be fixed, and I just kept on, prolonging it. I had hockey game, I had hockey practice, I had hockey this, I had hockey that. Like I don't feel good, I'm sick. I made excuses because of the man's words.
Yeah,
That I'll never have teeth in my mouth by the age of 30. I never wanted to go back into that office.
Is this the same dentist?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So when we did go back to the dentist from there, I left the office that day. I was able to smile again.
Yeah.
And it was, it was something that I said, I'm never going back. I don't want to go back. I'm not comfortable going back.
You never told him, though.
I never told my father. I told my father later on in life, like before he had passed away. I sat down with him and discussed everything. And, he wasn't surprised.
Yeah.
Because, it's very embarrassing.
Yeah.
But it's also extremely painful. The many, many years, like, when I was like 25, 26, 27, the embarrassment of teeth are everything.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it, and I was okay. I learned how to cover my mouth. I learned how to just cope in different ways. And I was thrown off my hockey team in high school, and that's when I went to start drinking more and more. But when you learn to cope with things, one of the things that you learn to deal with, that you cope with, is just like when you're learning to cope with your personal pains, the comfort zones that you find yourself are not normal. So, all of my comfort zones, like I was comfortable sitting in pain with my teeth rotting away, and it got to the point where, I used to have abscesses that I would like, so an abscess comes in and it's hard. So I would like rub it all day long and just tell people I have a toothache.
Wow.
And then I would soften it up and I would go home and I would pop an abscess. And I would suck the infection out.
Oh, my God.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. So it was crazy, but I felt like...
That was a better option than...
Yeah, it was
like
so I didn't want to go into the dentist. And, it got to the point where it's just like it's happening more and more. And then I found different ways around it. I learned that abscesses, a lot of them are caused by citrus.
Okay.
Right? So I didn't
Stop drinking orange juice.
Orange juice. I didn't have lemon, lime, anything with citrus. Right? And I didn't eat corn on the cob. I didn't eat it for like 20 years. I love corn on the cob. Like you give me a corn on the cob right now, I'm devouring it.
Yeah.
But another thing with my teeth was that, through all of those years of just like, just running. I remember that tooth that I had fixed, right? I was about 27 years old, 28 years old. 7 years. Yeah, 28 years old. I was on the phone with my ex, and we were arguing, and I was yelling at her so viciously that I actually blew my front cavity out of my tooth.
No way.
Right? Yeah. So now I'm like, all right, most people would make a dentist appointment and go get it fixed. I called my Coke dealer. I got 5 bags, and I went to CVS, and I found Dentex.
Oh, my God.
So now if you know Dentex is what they put in for a temporary filling.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I filled my front tooth for 7 years, and I preserved it, that it didn't rot away.
Oh, my God.
Because
With
I wouldn't
Dentex, you
That's
preserved
wild.
your...
Yes, I preserved my tooth for 7 years using Dentex. And I used to like put it in, it would be bright white, and then I would like smoke cigarettes through it to discolor it a little bit.
Oh my God, master.
Yeah, listen, again, I mastered a lot. I just sitting in pain, and that was the one thing in life that, I couldn't fix it myself. If I could have fixed it myself, maybe I wouldn't have become who I become.
Well, and that's what I want to talk about now, because we only have another 10 minutes left, is I want to talk about who you are today and what you're doing and what that looks like, and give us a rundown of the program.
German Shepherd was a turning point for you.
Yes, it was a huge turning point. So, when I first got sober, and I was told that I have to find a purpose, right? So searching for a purpose. My sobriety date is March 26, 2016. Okay. talk about religion. I'm not super religious. I'm in touch with a higher power. I do pray. I do thank God for giving me an opportunity for another day. I hope to become a better man. You know, like I'm trying to get more in tune with religion because I feel like it is a way of life, and it's a positive way of life.
Yeah.
It's what we were raised, but like I said, I was, you know, thrown off course a little bit. So my sobriety date happens to be Easter Sunday,
Right.
when Christ is risen.
Yeah.
So I feel like that was a day that I rose from my ashes.
Yeah.
And I started to search for myself and to build myself to the man that I wanted to be. Listening to all motivation made me believe that change is possible and that it's within us. I searched for a purpose. I was 2 months sober. My ex asked me if we could foster a dog for a husky house named Honey that had a heart condition called subaortic stenosis. Subaortic stenosis is one of the valves that leaves her heart was basically closed, had like a pinhole. So she would have to work so much harder to get the air through her body. She used to like convulse on the floor, and they told me that she wouldn't make 6 months.
Okay.
So on July 4th, 2017 is when I took her home. I was on 2016.
Yeah, that'd be
Right,
a couple
yeah.
months
It
afterwards.
was 2 months, yeah.
Yeah.
I was 2 months sober. She was 2 months old.
Wow.
They told me she wouldn't make 6 months. So I told her I'll give her the best 4 months possible. And that dog truly gave me a purpose.
Because you had it for way longer.
I had it for almost 7
Yeah.
years.
Right.
Almost
That's awesome.
7 years.
And
So
is that,
she
so
showed
that was
me-
kind of the jumping point then.
That was the point that opened up all of my doors.
Okay.
Like she made me feel like a human. She accepted me for who I was. She wasn't judging me. All she wanted was love, and in return I started to understand and feel what self-love was. Like I started to love myself. I started to love being sober. I loved the change that I was going through. I loved the fact that I had something that was waiting for me at home. So instead of me, you know, being out to all hours of the night, it would be go to work, come home, and take care of the dog. I remember it was like just a couple weeks after I had taken her home. She was, I thought that she was leaving me. And I literally looked at her and I was like, I am not ready for you to go.
Right.
Please don't go.
Right.
I have a picture of me holding her in my arms, like on my porch, and I'm like rocking her. And I remember crying to her, and she didn't leave me.
Yeah.
So Honey just showed me what it was to live for something else besides pain and suffering. I started to live for an animal, and she opened up my whole world. I started to volunteer at Husky House. I started to volunteer with a goat sanctuary called Goats of Anarchy.
That's awesome.
They rescue.
I love goats.
Yeah, they rescue special needs goats. So when I started working there, so I worked in a shelter environment, like a regular basic rescue shelter environment.
And when you were doing this, were you like, this is what's been missing? Like, this is
I felt
this
at
is
home.
where I
felt at home. The animals weren't judging me at the time. You got to
Well,
remember.
that's what there's one line in here that says the dog accepted me for who I was at my lowest point in my life. As an addict, we go into a corner and we defend ourselves. I opened up my heart and I welcomed her, and with that, she welcomed me.
Correct.
And I thought that was great because two broken souls, right? Yeah, two misunderstood breeds, which I got a kick out of that when I saw that. That's further
Misunderstood breeds. Yeah, the biggest takeaway.
She just accepted me for who I was, and she loved me. It just made me like I had no choice but to love and accept myself. If a dog could accept me for who I am, then I could accept me for who I am.
Yeah.
But then like going back and just saying like, all right, like the same lifestyle that I lived, I just took a negative addiction and made it a positive addiction. So now I was addicted to helping. I would look into dogs' eyes, and you know, the dogs were a big eye opener for me. But I really found myself like wanting to do what I do today on a farm.
Okay.
With horses and goats and around people that were just truly about trying to help each other and also animals. So basically what I did was I was involved with regular rescue and sanctuary. So I seen the best of both worlds and I put it together.
Okay.
On June 6, 2017 is when I started a mission called Pit Bulls and Addicts. And I wanted to show the world that Pit Bulls and Addicts are two misunderstood breeds. And I had no clue what I was doing. All I know is that I told my father that I was going to go from a zero to a hero. These dogs and these animals made me feel like I was a hero.
Nice.
A hero of my own. But I had so much, like I still had all of the problems from my addiction. Like I still didn't fix my teeth. I still didn't, everything. I just was no longer doing drugs.
Yeah.
But everything else.
Everything else was still there.
Yeah.
So now it's like the biggest eye opener is like when you're not high no more and you're like, wow, what am I gonna do in this situation? Like, you know, like every day you answer your phone is another problem. You know, like there's always something that you've forgotten about because you're just so high that you didn't realize what you were doing.
Yep.
You didn't realize how, like, what you've caused. You didn't realize the pain that you put other people in. You know, like we just, like I said, I felt good hurting people.
Yeah.
And then when I wasn't that man no more, it actually hurt me to know what I was doing and the effect that I had on people.
For
So
sure.
basically what I said was like, listen, I'm not that man no more. I'm going to find a new way of life, and that's it. People are going to love me for who I am or hate me for who I am.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like, I want to learn to love myself.
But at least if they hate you for who you are, you know you're
It
doing
is
the
what
right
it is.
thing. And
I
it's
turned
like,
my
all
life around.
Yeah. You're not giving them a reason to.
Correct.
Yeah.
Proud
Listen,
of
if you're going
yourself
to,
now.
I'm super proud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so my mission, I have
awesome.
I have touched lives literally across the world. I've saved over 1,000 dogs.
So you started with Pit Bulls and Addicts, and now what are you doing?
Yeah,
I'm
tell
still
lead us
so
up to today.
so right now I'm still Pitbulls and Addicts.
Okay.
You know, my nonprofit organization is Broken Souls Rescue and Recovery, but I'm basically still building my dream. You know, I'm self-funded. I raise my money week to week, day to day. I took an empty lot and built my dogs a yard that is to die for.
That's awesome.
You know, we have waterfalls. They have turf. It's just a creation. It's a creation of, you know, peace and serenity. When I first started this mission, I said to myself, if I was a rescue dog, how would I want to live?
Yeah.
And, you know, in the beginning was a learning process. At first, I just built cages, and then I built this. And, like, now I'm finally at the point where my success rate is 100%. Every
awesome.
dog that comes in is broken and defeated. I rescue abuse and neglect, and I give them the love that they deserve. You know, the love that if I was that rescue dog, what would make me feel like I'm in a better place?
And what? So you get the dogs, and then you pair them with.
Yeah.
How does that work?
It's not that I pair them. In the beginning, I tried to pull more addicts into this, but I feel like when you're trying to push something on an addict, it always backfires on you.
Yeah.
So basically, I leave an open door to anybody who wants to be around. But I also have zero tolerance because I have to speak for my dogs.
Yeah.
You know, so like there's a lot of people that are doing things because their loved one wants them to be a part of something, or they're just trying this and that. It's either you got to be 100% or I really
Right.
don't have time for it no more. So,
Right.
like, you know, I've done a lot for addicts, and at the end of the day, I'm always the one that gets a finger pointed.
Yeah.
You know, like I had kids who walked away, that passed away, that, you know, overdosed on purpose.
Right.
That their family turned to me, and, you know, he's the reason why my son is dead.
Right.
You know, I'm just not here for that no
Yeah,
more. I'm truly here for broken souls, whether it's a human or a dog. But at the end of the day, is that a dog doesn't have a voice. So I'm ready and willing to go to whatever extent that I have to. But a human does have a voice, and like, I don't like people that are not truly in it for 100% change. And you know, you have to change a lot of your life to become who you want to become. Most people aren't ready for it.
Yeah.
And when they're ready, then we could make the difference together. But I can't do it for you.
So how do people get involved now if they, in whatever
They could
capacity?
contact me through my website, pitbullsandaddicts.org. I'm super active on Instagram.
Okay.
I'm not a Facebook guy. But they could contact me mainly through my website or through Instagram.
Cool.
And when you talk about pairing up, it's not that I pair up. I offer a small job opportunity too. So I have a kid right now underneath my wing. His name is Rob. Rob came to me January 1st after a 6-day bender. Rob has been living a sheltered life due to a couple reasons, but he turned to me and he said, Mike, I need help. You're the dog guy, right? And he's like, can you help me? I
Do you get a lot of people like that? You're the dog guy?
Yeah, it's all over.
Yeah, that's
You know,
awesome.
and to be honest with you, in the beginning, I didn't feel like this was going anywhere. But, you know, within the last year and a half, 2 years, man, it's
Really took off.
It's a blessing.
So many
You know, like
articles.
people
should check out the website because your event press page is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just getting started. I'm just learning how to speak. Like, I didn't know how to talk. I was an emotional disaster. Like, I was a dark man. Like, I was a dark boy. So becoming a man, like, you're learning how to speak and just learning how to control your emotions, because, like, if I get emotion, like, if the whole conversation is ridden with emotions, you're not gonna feel the same way. You know, like, I wanna shoot some things into people that they've never had shot. And number one is, like, you have to love yourself. You know, I didn't love myself until, I want to say, probably 38 years old.
That's a hard thing to. That's an easy thing to say. It's a hard thing to get other people to do. You know, they got to come.
Yeah,
to that on
but
their
when you
own.
lead by example, it's a little easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, like, I tell
Absolutely.
people, I'm not a perfect man. I'm a changed man, and I'm perfectly okay with
You're
the
a
man
great
that I
role
am
model,
today.
for sure.
I think
You
the
know.
girls have some questions.
We have some students here that we have a few minutes left,
Yeah.
but
Okay, let's
Sanjana or
answer some
Lily?
questions, students.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, when you first came here, you said you talk to a lot of young people, and you said you don't beat around the bush and you're harsh. Tell me what that looks like, because like you said 21 and I'm 20, and like
Yeah.
those things resonate.
Well, to be honest with you, like I like to speak to the younger generation because you guys are the future. We live in a place now where there's a lot of judgmental opinions based upon social media, and like I like to tell my story to the future because you don't have to live the life that I live to be a person that I am. Now, you may not want to be a dog rescuer or somebody who speaks about drug addiction because you may not even make it out of drug addiction. I'm super thankful that I made it out. But you could become the best version of yourself. And, if there's anything that's bothering you, anything that happened to you as a child, the best thing you could do is speak about it. But more importantly is that it's frowned upon to be a good person nowadays, I feel. I feel like there's not too many leaders out there that promote being good. Yeah. And it feels good to be a good person nowadays. So I just try to inspire the future to become the best version of yourself, to understand that, you have all the power in the world to do anything that you want to do. But if there's some things that are holding you down, if you don't take care of it at an early age, it's going to catch up to you in the future.
Yeah.
Well said.
Lily, do you have anything?
Yeah, so in a similar vein, you mentioned that an instrumental part in your journey to sobriety and healing and rebuilding your self-worth was first believing that change is possible.
Correct.
So what advice would you give people that may be struggling with believing that?
At the end of the day, I didn't think that change was possible until I started to think about what life was about. And if you realize that anybody who is something has all been, if you want to become a doctor, you have to go through different stages of school. And then you also need hands-on experience to become the best doctor of yourself. The life that I was living, if I didn't change it, I wouldn't be the person that I was. I knew that I could become a better person, but I had to change my ways, and nothing changes if nothing changes. So I had to change everything from my mindset to my daily activities to getting in touch physically with myself and pushing limits. I was okay with sitting in pain, so I had to change that mainly. And then from that, all the change came. So you could change yourself, but it's not going to happen unless you do it.
Unfortunately, I wish that we had more time. I feel like there's
was-
still
We
a
could
lot
do this
more.
for hours.
I know.
You are.
Yeah.
You are like you just put it all out on the table. That's
Yeah,
really.
I could literally sit here for hours and speak about it. I feel like there's there's so much that goes into an addict in recovery, and it's just like some people just live like this basic life, and it's
Well, I'd love
great.
to do a follow-up show and
For sure.
See where you're at. And
Yeah,
then,
I would love to come back. I
another
love
year
to.
or so and see what's
I'm
going
just
on.
I just loving the new life that I live. So spreading awareness and actually showing people. I don't just go on podcasts and speak it. I actually live it more than I speak it. So
right.
I'd love to come back if you guys have me back.
Yeah, we'd love
Hopefully
to
we
have you.
Some, deeper conversations based upon what I do nowadays. Because getting to know somebody is one thing, and that's another thing. Is like I don't really speak too much about who I was anymore. It's like more about
what you're
like
doing.
who I am and
Yep.
the reason why I do it. Because like I said, like I truly rescue the ones that need me.
Yeah.
And like I said, sometimes kids need me. I deal with a lot of kids from inner city.
Yeah.
Where they don't have dads around. They're involved with gangs. They're involved in drugs. They think that violence is cool.
Yep.
So like I do this just because I don't want nobody to sit through the pain that I sat through.
That's it.
You could
Turning
change
your
it
pain
now.
into purpose.
That's it. Pain into purpose.
You are very motivating, and I want to thank you tremendously for being here today and
Thank you for
sharing your
having me.
story and being so honest and helping eradicate the stigma.
Yeah.
Because you're taking part in that.
Misunderstood.
That's for sure.
If you're struggling with mental health or substance use, you're not alone. SAMHSA offers services and resources for substance use disorder at 1-800-662-HELP. For additional help, you can visit Hope House Ministries online at hhm.org or call 631-928-2377. ICAD offers substance and support and guidance at 631-979-1700. LICAD also distributes fentanyl test strips as part of their free Narcan kits. Please have Narcan accessible. BeyondTheOpioidCrisis.com is a great resource to check out some strategies for hope amidst the opioid and fentanyl crisis. And on behalf of the Play It Forward Project, we want to thank you for listening. We invite you to join us on Instagram at sbu.playitforward. Please give us some feedback. Check us out on YouTube at the Play It Forward Project, and we hope that our message reaches somebody. So for now and always, keep
playing it
forward.
All right. Thanks, Kurt. And thank you again, Mike Favor.
Thank you.
And thanks to Sanjana and Lily, too.
Yes, Sanjana, Lily, and Lizzie's.
Oh, and Lizzie's
here.
I saw Lizzie walk. Hey, Lizzie.
Yes, and thank you so much, Wizzy.
Yes.
And to our listeners, this is Allison of the Play It Forward Project. Tune in to our next special show in 2 weeks, August 23rd at 1 p.m.
September
23rd.
September 23rd. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. I'm hoping it's summer still. As we will be interviewing Martha Pishy, a playwright who will be debuting her off-Broadway play, Ashes and Ink, a tough love story, a mother and a son, and his battle with addiction. So again, thank you, WUSB, Wizzy, Kurt, and of course, Mike Favor.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Mike.
Mike, you have a special, it's not a song. Introduce to our listeners what Wizzy's going to play.
So the speech that changed my life, Day 1 of sobriety, March 26, 2016, is Legacy by William King Hollis.
You are listening to WUSB Stony Brook 90.1 and 107.3 FM. Be well, everyone, and please look out for one another.
Wake up every single day thinking about how can I change my life? How can I stand on the stage with the giants? I started this on homeless on the side of a Turkey Hill gas station, and I told myself I will not die here. I said, how can I build $1 million business with no money? A conscience in my head spoke to me and it said purpose. They said, when you work for your purpose will begin to work for you, and dreams and beautiful things will start to manifest. And I truly believe this. As long as you believe in that very gift that you have in the bottom of your stomach, that fire that burns, that dream that wakes you up in the middle of the night and wakes you up and have you screaming to the sun, rise, so I can go after this dream. That is the very thing that you should chase every single day. If you chase this dream with consistency and you believe, your booking and your calendar will fill up. You want me to come to the middle of the projects? I'm coming. You want me to go where murderers sleep and live? I'm coming. You want me to fight that abusive husband that's beating on you? I'm coming. I'm going to take drug dealers and turn them into community leaders. I'm going to turn murderers into security. I'm going to turn drug addict mothers back into beautiful queens. I'm going to turn broken men into kings. And I'm going to show them that everything you tried to hide, God placed inside of me to tell the truth. So when I say the kings are on the rise, we are on the rise. Whatever you want out of your life, it's up to you to create. Because every human on this earth is born with this empty canvas. And your life is what you paint. There's nobody more special than anybody on this earth. It's just people that's willing to go down into the valley of nothingness. The valley of darkness. And come back with the sun. It's time that real comes to life. That's why the world is falling in love with this motivation, because it's real. You can feel it, you can see it, you know it. And when I realized that I was gonna have to put on my hard hat, that I was gonna have to put on my boots, and I was gonna have to strap up and fight for this dream, that's when things started to happen. I told people I never wanted to be the man and the leader that stood in the front and everyone stood behind me. I wanted to be a leader that everybody stood on side of me and we fought together. And we won't sell our soul for a taste of a light bulb. I don't care if you that small boy sitting in them project halls. I don't care if you that girl that mother treats her like trash and calls her out her name. I don't care if you that young boy who never had a father to take him outside or throw a football. I don't care if you that father that they say is not a good father, but they don't understand you never learned how to be a father. You never learned how to love. I want you to know that you still are something. And as long as you got air in your lungs, life in your body, you can be anything you want to be. You can be anything you want to be. This is what we must do to take back our city. This is what we must do to change this world. We must come together collectively. We must understand that these older cats have sold their soul to the devil for $1. And they forgot about the babies at the bottom. They never went back. They left us. We don't need you anymore. But are you willing to die? Are you willing to sleep outside of that CEO office for an opportunity? You see, just getting to the opportunity is hard. Seizing the moment is a whole nother monster. So while you fighting and you clawing to get to the next level, let me tell you something. If you're a person out there buying, trying to buy your way to the top, I want to let you know something, King and Queen. You can't buy a legacy. This you must earn. See, the big dogs, they won't give you the opportunity. You're gonna have to take it. You're gonna have to sleep in your car. You're gonna have to sleep on that floor. You're gonna have to cry them tears. But we're not gonna be crybabies. We're gonna be lions. You know, when a lion is injured, when a lion is bleeding, he licks his wounds and he keeps walking. So be the type of person that's willing to fight, give your blood, sweat, and tears for what you believe in, and understand a legacy can never be bought. Let me tell you why. You can't buy a legacy. See, the Most High give us this dynamic gift, this gift that's so amazing. I mean, this gift that the whole world wants to buy. But he makes us work for them. He makes us grind. He makes us feel the pain of the process. And for me, I would say I'd rather have it no other way. See, we get a lot of people that throw all these big conferences, throw all these big, amazing events, and what I realize is you pay $10,000, but the Most High is the only one that's going to give you the date that says it's time for you to be great. It's time for you to be phenomenal. See, many of us like to skip the hard part. We like to skip the stages that make us the great people that we are born to be. Les Brown has a saying, live full and die empty. And that's what I live by. I realized that you have to be willing to sleep outside of that office for your opportunity. You must be willing to go down to the shelter and eat those canned goods for your opportunity. You must be willing to almost die for your dream. And you must realize that you cannot buy this. No one can give you this. You must earn this. I played the game as if my life was on the line. And individuals all over the world to understand this very thing. Greatness lies in the man that believes it's in them. So all those books, all those manuals, everything you're looking at, you're gonna realize one day when you're standing on that stage, when you're standing at that altar, when you're standing at that place of greatness, you're gonna remember, you're gonna understand that everything I needed was inside of me. Everything I needed was inside of me. Now if you turned your back on me, I promise I'm gonna make you turn around. You will call me king. You will call me king.